All right.
Chris, just perfect timing.
Hey there.
Yeah, so thanks for everyone for coming for today's TAC meeting. I think we have agenda. We want to just talk about our process of moving our project to OpenJS. Among us, we submit application, DeckGL, VizGL, KeplerGL, HubbleGL plus Luma Blue. We submit a separate application to join OpenJS, and so far, according to Brian, it has been pretty positive. Things are moving along. We only have one question about Luma Blue, but Ilya B is not here today. He's on vacation, so I can follow up with him separately when he gets back. Anything you want to add, Brian?
No, just it seems like, well, I guess I can give a quick update on the feedback here. So Viz and Kepler, both of those have enough votes to be accepted as OpenJS Foundation projects, which is awesome. I built a year into the time frame here, just assuming that this is going to be the slow part of the process. It turns out it was the fast part of the process. The response on Flowmap Blue, nobody's opposed to the project, but there is some concern about it being a sole maintainer project. And in the past, OpenJS has said, we really are looking for projects which have multiple maintainers and multiple contributors. So I think the path forward here is probably pretty straightforward. If we can fold Flowmap Blue's governance under Viz or Kepler, then it just becomes basically a non-issue, and Flowmap can reuse their application at any point, anytime in the future, if it does end up being a project with a broader contributor and broader maintainer base. Just to be abundantly clear on this, there are no concerns with the project itself. None that have been communicated to me. It's really just kind of typically the projects that come into OpenJS have more contributors and more maintainers as to be standalone separate projects. So from my perspective, I don't have a strong opinion one way or another which project adopts Flowmap under its governance. Maybe you can make a suggestion and we can go from there. But that is the last approval that's needed on the projects. I think, Chris, you and I had exchanged some emails, I believe, about filling out the application for the collaboration space, which is basically, that's where the TAC would live from now on, or from that point onward. It's really straightforward. You basically have all the documentation already. It's just a matter of copying it into the template and then us running a really quick vote on it. We're just right at the we're right at the very end. So I think once those two things are taken care of, that's everything the TAC needs to know about.
I'm open for Flowmap to join VizGL.
Okay.
I think VizGL has several spin-off projects like Hubble, and I think it feels like it belongs there.
Okay. I mean, from a day-to-day perspective, it really doesn't probably change much of anything, It's just making sure that all of the, that everybody has a home and they have a structure is all. So.
In a sense, I do think Hubble is a great example of like another project that's kind of in a similar position. It's primarily me that contributes to it. And yeah. I was on the fence about whether or not I would apply as like a separate project or within VizGL, I remember, and ultimately just went into VizGL for the governance structure because I mean, there's no, it's set up in a way where I can maintain it and it's fine. It goes under I'll just use the same governance model that VizGL has, and it's a great structure.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really need to be in a separate project. There's no benefit. If anything, it's kind of nice to have a governance structure to kind of tag along with. So, yeah. Plus, Flowmap, a lot like Hubble, is tightly integrated with Deck and Luma in the sense that they kind of work and march forward together. Like Flowmap is primarily a DeckGL layer. So it's, if DeckGL changes in a fundamental way, Flowmap's going to need to change in a fundamental way for that compatibility to stay there. So it's a good companion in that sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will, I think Ilya is the maintainer on that one, right? That was, if I recall correctly. So I'll just reach out and just make sure that they're okay with that as well. I mean, from a very practical perspective, it doesn't change anything. Access to resources doesn't change. The only thing that it changes is just number of votes for the representative from this group of projects onto the cross project council, which, you know, that's a fairly minor thing. It's not going to change anything from the day-to-day development perspective.
Can I ask, because I missed the last one, is PyTech is landing somewhere?
PyTech is right now part of GL.
Okay, cool, great.
There is one repository that we use to host the docs, but all the code is in DAC.
Cool.
Okay. So I'll send an email, and once I get confirmation that this looks good all around, then we'll communicate that back. And, you know, at this point, OpenJS is working through the process of putting together an announcement. So, you know, hopefully they'll be reaching out for more details here. I was just asked for some of the information last night. So this be good.
And in terms of putting out the cross project council application, so I was wondering who wants to be the members on the CPC. I'm looking at the call here, probably everybody on this call. Yeah, do you guys all want to be? Sorry, good.
Oh, sorry. Do you mean CPC or do you mean the collaboration space?
I thought they're the same.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. Let me just interject really quick.
Space.
Yeah, collaboration space. So yeah, that makes sense. So the collaboration space is just basically the name of what the TAC becomes. That's the structure that they have. The CPC is the actual, like, that's kind of the top technical committee. It's the equivalent of a TSC or a TAC for OpenJS as a whole.
Right. So
Yeah.
for our
Okay.
space, it's a collaboration space.
Yeah, I mean, we plan to continue meeting, right? And just under a new umbrella, a new name, and so that would be, you know, a cross-project visualization, open visualization, or whatever we called it, right? And
We can call it a open visualization collaboration space.
Yeah, sounds good to me. But yeah, I think a great initial set of members for this collaboration space would be the architects of the current and all members of the TAC, all members of the current board, and probably that would be a good initial set. You know, active contributors, active architects, active maintainers. Maybe I shouldn't say maintainers unless you want that. So I know that in VizGL, there's a difference between, I think, maintainer, contributor, and a third one. Is that right, Xiaoji? I remember seeing some of the time.
And steering committee member.
That's what I read. Yeah. Yeah. So it sounded like steering committee members, whoever the active ones are, definitely the board members. And I guess the only open question is if anybody else wants to be on that isn't in those groups, that is like an active maintainer. No.
I think that's me actually. I'm not
okay.
a maintainer.
Yeah.
I'm a maintainer and I'm not on the steering committee, but I would definitely love to continue being on the group. So you can make me a maintainer, but that might be dangerous. But I don't know. I mean, like it's I don't know what under what definition I can fall in, or does this have to be strict or any rules, or can we just leave it for anybody that wants to call, like just join on and help the project?
Yeah, there's no like limit to the number of people that can be in like at this position. I think if I understand correctly, there's basically this position, which is kind of a maintainer active participant in architecture discussions. And then there's like community members. And so a community member that becomes active would then, could be invited to or asked to become a part of this collaboration space. Does that answer your question, Shan?
Yep.
And so maybe we could just get an email going between this initial set of members that you collected. That way we all kind of know who we've got on that list, and it's a chance for someone to say, oh, actually, I think this other person should be involved too, before we kind of finalize that list. And that way we're kind of being open about it and making sure there's a chance for people that should be a part of it to be part of it. And I think also it seems like another step after this is once this space is established, we're then going to have to clarify all our documentation around who is in the space, how do you become a member of the space, which is really just kind of a carryover from some of our old documentation. But we've got a lot of old names on docs and stuff of people that aren't really active anymore. And so this is like maybe a chance to refresh that list. Yeah.
I just also that I understand, because I missed last meeting. What happens with the organizations that were sponsoring the Urban Computing Foundation? Are you guys going to join now the foundation? I mean, what is the objective here? Because Carter never joined the foundation, but what should we join now?
Brian.
I was me.
Yeah, Brian, do you want to?
So
you probably could say it best. Yeah.
I was going to say the way that we handled this was the organizations that are on the governing board get 12 months free membership at the silver level in the OpenJS Foundation that basically reflects dues paid and kind of a thank you for going through this process on the governing board side. And then they would just become regular silver members of the OpenJS Foundation. So if you are looking for an organization to join, then OpenJS would be the one. And it's an umbrella project similar to Urban Computing Foundation, where it's membership. It helps support Node, it helps support all these others, it helps support Webpack, helps support Electron. It's very similar in the sense that this is just a bigger umbrella.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on, let's discuss Javier's topics. Do you want to bring up your topic?
Sure. I mean, it's not much. I mean, like this comes from all you guys. I mean, there's a limited group of people here today, but essentially, I mean, I think right now, with the work that we've been doing with Google and potentially work that might come from Azure on AWS, I think there's starting to raise more interest on DeckGL as the visualization layer for a lot of data providers, which is great. I think it's going to be very good. And one of the things that when I'm in talks to some of them about why they should support DeckGL, so on, is that I tell them they should try to contribute with contributors actually on DeckGL and to increase the community and beyond just recommending DeckGL on top of their products and so on. So as part of that, one of the kind of realizations was that many of those organizations have a hard time actually putting contributors into these projects, but I think it wouldn't be too hard to actually get resources from them, actually ask them for money to help the DeckGL project. I think so. This in particular, I mean, I don't want to name in particular, but that was kind of the rationale behind it. And then we were thinking about it, we said well, we think with all the things that are happening around DeckGL, with the move to the OpenJS Foundation and with some of the upgrades that we've been doing on the code base and so on, I think it might be a good moment to do a little bit of a revamp of the project from a community design website perspective. I mean, the minimum, guys, we need a logo. we really need a logo. I mean, I'm tired on, like on putting DeckGL on presentations without a logo. I think it's a pity. So as the minimum, but then I thought, like it might be a good idea to think about like, hey, what if we think about like, doing a revamp of our website, maybe improving, like the examples, maybe improving the documentation. I don't know, you name it. What are the things that could maybe make it better, to make it more attractive for contributors to contribute, or, or for users to use it? I think right now, probably looking more for contributors than users, but I mean, those two things are probably very linked together. So my proposal that I wanted, and I started without much success, was to actually ask the DeckGL community in Slack, what things would you like to see improve? And there's not been much feedback. There's a little bit, I can share it, but essentially, I mean, like, doesn't seem to be much engagement. And based on your response, guys, or either you guys are very busy or no one really cares too much about this. But I think this is the type of things that, like I could do. I cannot probably code into the GL, but I can probably try to mobilize a project that, could organize, like a revamp of certain things. So one of my first proposal was to actually do a project, like we get ideas of things, and we can ask for whatever we want. We need a better website, and we want it this way, this other way. I mean, like exactly whatever we wanted. And then I can actually look for a company that could actually make that happen, because I know that you guys are all very busy. I can find a company that could actually make it happen the way that we want it. And then I can try to actually look for some of those big companies to actually pay for it. That was kind of like one way that I could think that if, like if we do it and then we do a big announcement, like with some of this, I mean, it could be a good bump to our project. That's one thing. On the process, I also found a company that I have a presentation from. I don't know if you know them. It's called OpenJs. Have you guys ever heard of that company? Let me show you. I mean, this is another possibility. I told them that I was going to show you this today, just I didn't know. I mean, but this is a company that actually helps open source projects actually, like just succeed more. I mean, like it helps companies and their open source projects. It's not, like just normally it is a company who pays this company to improve their open source projects. So they've worked in projects like NumPy, SciPy, Pandas, a lot of like very, very important projects. They also provide, like development resources if you want to. So they gave me these 4 slides, because I told them, like, look, it would be great if I can present it to the committee and or whatever we want to call this, and see, like, because essentially what this, as you said, they work with many large organizations. What these kind of like they suggested, I told them, like, take a look at DeckGL, at the repo, and what do you see? And they said, well, there's some obvious things. So they provide even consulting towards, hey, you should maybe consider like making a better use of first issue labels, like certain things that in their experience have actually helped to grow open source communities. So these are some of the ideas that they put, like in a brief overview. But in this presentation, what I'm putting here is just saying, like, hey, are we interested in talking to them? If we're interested, the next step will be that I can ask them to actually make a proposal of the things that they will propose to do, and they will put a budget. And we can ask them to add whatever we think it needs to be done. And then I could take responsibility to try to raise money to pay for it. That's what I want to say. So these are, one is actually we do it ourselves. We try to put what we want, and we write in a document exactly what we want to make it happen as one. The other, maybe we use a company like this. But I think right now there's probably more money, more companies wanting to contribute money than actually want to contribute contributors. So that was kind of what I said, like maybe then it makes sense that we try to do something to improve that. So that's the idea. Reactions.
I think the survey was only posted on the general channel of Slack. That channel has like over 400 people in it, and there's a lot of noise, so it's easy to get like drawn out in all the conversations. We have in the past had like a banner thing in the website. where people who visit can go click on it. But I think the fastest way to get a quality response is just for us regular maintainers to reach out to people who use Stack GL extensively and just ask them to take their survey. That's probably fastest.
That's a good idea. I thought of that.
I think it's also easier if you like, I mean, just asking, I looked briefly at it and I think that it contained these questions like, do you have any ideas for how to improve things? But I think it's kind of, you have to really think. I mean, the documentation is not that bad. And so like, but of course it can be improved, but exactly how? I think Sean did a survey on Kepler at one point and provided very clear questions, you know, how would you prioritize these different features and so on. I think that got a lot of feedback. Yeah, I think it got over 1,000 replies. But then it was really like, which of these features would you kind of like to see in, you know, in Kepler, and how would you rank them or something like that. So I think there's a, you know, a trick to how to create an engaging, you know.
Question. I mean, in full honest, I mean, like Isa is new to the project, that's why I asked her to kind of build it, and maybe we didn't put enough effort to make it much more engaging. So I can, that's definitely one point, make it more engaging. The other is having a better distribution through either a banner or actually directly ourselves asking contributors, right?
Maybe we should bring.
I gave $100 Amazon gift card for the survey, so I think that helped.
Oh, that's right.
That was the trick.
I was reading through. I mean, the other day I opened up on my phone, and I think that was why I didn't fill it out completely. But I liked the questions. I thought they were useful, and also the fact that most of them weren't required, meaning I could put up, I could fill out a partial, which is like great, because sometimes I can only get so far through it, and then I at least want to like save my work or give them what I did fill in, or just do the 1 to 5 ratings. But we could put it like as a bookmark in the Slack, so it's pinned up at top. That way it doesn't get lost in the noise. That's like a no effort thing we could do like right now. And then I think putting it on our website as a banner would also be pretty great. Is that, I'll have to.
I think that's great. What do you guys think about like engaging with a company like OpenTeams to give us some sort of like an external audit? Because what I like about it is like, I like the website. I mean, don't get me wrong. And I know the documentation now because I've been seeing now for years, so I can go through it very nicely. But someone that can say like, well, look, this is a little bit hard for people to get started. You know, like you might want to improve the onboarding, or you might, I don't know, whatever. Get the set of, you know, like an external eyes and audit towards, you know, like with the recommendations that then combined with what the community has told us, we actually make into an actual proposal. And I'm actually even thinking that this company could even make the proposal itself. I mean, like that's what these kind of companies do. I'm just trying to optimize here. If there's a company that does this, and there's people that are willing to pay money for actually kind of doing this, no? What do you think? If you don't look very comfortable.
No, look,
comfortable. You look comfortable.
Yeah, of course, I love getting you know, investment into. I'm always trying to get more investment into you know, the VisGL frameworks and DeckGL, and trying to convince people to contribute. And you know, and I have been able to do, as you know, a couple of. So we've had a big project with Google on the Earth Engine layers, and S3 is still actively working. You know, we've been working for years now with their i3s loaders. Those are good examples. But generally, I mean, I have talked to a lot of companies, and you know, you know, I've gotten a lot of no's. I mean, there is some interest, but really getting them to open the, you know, the wallet and contribute. But you know, you have a strong reputation, and you seem optimistic, right? So
no problems. Look,
you know,
look, that's the other thing that, you know, it's important to take in consideration. That's why I think, you know, like even maybe OpenTeams is a good path, because, you know, like making a good proposal for raising money takes time and takes effort. So all I can say is that when I've talked to Google, I told them like guys, you are benefiting a lot from DeckGL. I mean, minimum, I said, like, you should maintain your own packets. That's the minimum. I think we're going to get that. Second is either put contributors on DeckGL or pay, to improve the community. And I think, like, for Google to pay, like, to become part of the Urban Computing Foundation, it might be a little more complicated because they would say, no, we need you, to sponsor this project to actually make the project better. And it's $50,000 because we're going to have 50,000 from Microsoft and 50 from AWS. I think, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I think, like, this is not asking for funding for Carter. This is not, no, this is, it's asking funding for an open source project that they're benefiting from. So this is my point in there. So,
yeah, I mean, if the project becomes important to it, the health of the project should be also, and longevity should be important to them. And if you can help us provide a really good story around that, how we can take care of that, but we need a little bit of funding, then it may be possible. So I absolutely support it. I mean, I mean, I trained a team in Russia to do some of this work. I mean, unfortunately today, no one wants to work with Russia. So, yeah,
that's not going to be something I'm going to ask contributors to give some money to Russia. Is not the best way to get funding.
It's a non-starter, right?
Like, don't ask me that. That will not happen. Yeah. Look, I don't know. I mean, like, I think, like, what I suggest the following things, like, like, as Oji and Chris has said, can we actually put this on the Slack, promote it a little bit more? What we have right now, we start collecting, maybe it could be better. I tell the open team company, hey guys, make us a proposal. I tell them already, we're not going to fund it. We don't have the money, the foundation, neither, these companies. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get your proposal. I'm going to go to Google and Microsoft. I'm going to tell them, like, you guys can help pay for this. And if they pay for this, then that money goes to that company. And then ideally we get a nice report, with ideas about how to do and so on, and a budget to make them happen. And then hopefully this happens and none of us actually have to do much work. And I wish I could say, like, I'm going to dedicate, like 2 days a week to actually make this happen myself and the company, but it's just unrealistic. And I don't think, you guys at Foursquare also can dedicate a lot of time. I mean, none of us are actually, we have enough resources to spend on this on our own.
Yeah, I mean, we're spending a lot, right? We're currently spending pretty good chunk of money to upgrade the entire Kepler code base to TypeScript. So that's like one of those big projects that benefits the community that we're taking on the cost for, right? So I mean, yeah.
Look, I mean, I'm not saying, I mean, we are the heroes who we are here. So I'm definitely on that one. I know it, but it's the thing, like, for us, it tends to be easier right now to contribute to parts of the DL, but this is maybe the part that we can actually outsource.
I don't have any issues with wanting to pursue a proposal on how we can learn to improve our sites and issues. Does anybody have any concerns about pursuing?
I mean, it would obviously be great to have a good plan for how we can improve and take our sites to the next level. I mean, the state of the art of interactive documentation is improving every year, right? And so I'm sure there's great ideas out there for how we can make a really, really awesome site. And we can probably, if we really think about it, there's probably problems. We have a lot of different sites, and maybe it's like we don't have a global search for them. And, there's a lot of things we could, if we put in a little bit effort. And if we come up with that and we put this community spin, this is how, this would help grow the community and the longevity and all of that. And, why not float that with companies, like big companies that are invested in this, and give them an opportunity to ask them if they can help us fund it. All we can get is a no, and then maybe, at least we have a plan for how to improve things on our own.
Yeah, that that's what I'm thinking too.
Cool. I'll take care of it. I'll send it to these guys and say like we are okay. Actually, them investing on making a proposal, and then I'll share it around. Saoji, well, I'm already in contact with the Azure Maps team. They are committed to the GL. So that's great. But for everybody else to know, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Azure Maps is a similar service to Amazon Location, Mapbox, and so on. And well, Saoji, it's your company. You want to say anything?
Oh, I didn't know if they got back to you. They pinged me again later and basically tell me to pitch why DexGL would help them, and I did, and went into a black hole again. I don't know what they're doing.
Well, I think they're still figuring out what they're doing, but I think from what I got, they like the idea of like DexGL. I mean, it's what we all know. It doesn't make sense for any company today to actually start its own visualization layer for base maps from scratch. It just doesn't make sense. And their differentiation is not, like on these, and like, so if they can come in, and the technology is super compatible because Azure Maps is kind of like a fork of Mapbox GL. So it's pretty straightforward for them to like just get to use it and so on. So yeah, so I think we might have some, we might have some contributors through that, and the Google team was also positive about seriously putting contributors. We will see. They all say so, and then later they don't do anything. But who knows? Hopefully this time is true. Right, I'll take care of this. And if you got any other company, I just don't want to. I don't want to send this to like Foursquare or because I forgot the company that you work on, the planes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to send it because I mean our companies are already contributing a lot. So I'd rather have this funding by some of these other people. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I want do the AWSs or Google contributors, do you know that do they need to know what to contribute to, or is it more they haven't even, like, is it a chicken, what kind of chicken and egg problem are we working with when it comes to getting contributions from their engineers? Have they given you any feedback on that?
So well, Google when we started working with them, my overall perspective, and you've been also working with them for some time. I think overall Google, AWS, and Azure have for a long time, and most of them, they have not yet figured out their strategy around data visualization. They all have their own libraries and they have some forms of visualizations, but when I say like visualization, geospatial visualizations, because very often they have not even thought their entire geospatial like a strategy per se. They have geo support in multiple places and so on. And when you show them that like geo visualization and something like DexGL is very important to complete the picture of their products and so on, they understand it, but it's not it is in no one's roadmap. It is in no one's part of like their work in a way. Then the other thing that happens is that we've been pretty good on our own to actually add support to all these things without them doing anything. So it just happens for them. It's like, great, someone has done it, like in a way. So that was with Google, there was other things. With Google, one of the reasons why they did not want to commit more to DexGL, and I'm glad that we overcome it, was changes on the website, because the website was very Mapbox centric. And they saw themselves like DexGL was not necessarily a fair competition place. I think now the website has changed so that it looks very base map independent, and that is great because everybody feels like, okay, DexGL is not going to tell you to use Google Maps, Mapbox, and that's how it should stay. And I think that is opening up now also opportunities like that. And then it's honestly, it just requires like promotion from our site. I went to visit the Azure Maps guys. I showed them the project, like they have another meeting. I say, you guys should not create your own visualization layer. You should do this and so on. So you see, so it's there. It's just like, it wasn't no one's priority. They didn't see it as such a core priority, for completing their product. In part was already done by someone else, you know, like, but the opportunity is there. I mean, like I said, like guys, I think, you know, like DeckGL has the opportunity to be the de facto standard for spatial visualization, the data layer on maps. And I think, you know, like that's what we should go for.
Okay, yeah, that's great background. Thanks for sharing that. It made me think of like another question for maybe Ibn Sauji, like related to kind of our background architecture, web GPU in particular. Like, do we have any updates on where that might be going over the next time period? Since if it kind of interacts with all these different pieces we're talking about too.
Our plan is to integrate the upcoming Luma v9 alpha into the DAC code base. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, the API is still backward compatible, so you can still import the old classes from Luma. So the existing DAC code does not have to change that much. But eventually we will migrate to the new Luma API, which is more web GPU-like, and it will use web GPU if it's supported, and will fall back to WebGL if not. That way we can claim that we're web GPU ready.
When would that happen again? When could we? What, timing wise?
The V9 alpha of Luma is already published. It's being worked on. I don't think we're comfortable with going to production till we at least prove that DAC works on it. But other than that, are we waiting for anything else?
I mean, I did a really big push. I spent 3 months, you know, refactoring Luma GL, and so Luma GL is now an abstract API consisting of a number of interfaces. You get hold of a device, and then you use that device to create things like textures and render pipelines and buffers and so on. And now there is an implementation of that device, which is a WebGL device, and there is a web GPU device. So you can use the same API in both cases. And then I've kept all the old classes and implemented them on top of the WebGL device classes. So it is possible to still use the old API. Obviously, then you don't get the web GPU support, but there's a lot of refactoring that's gone on under the hood. And so a very good first step is to upgrade DeckGL to the new Luma GL v9 by staying with the old v8 API. And then we need to find, I mean, for sure I've broken things, right? And so we need to kind of go through that testing cycle and at least figure out the things that don't work. And then, you know, go back and fix them in Luma. And then, you know, then we have a DeckGL that runs on Luma GL v9. And that makes, and from that step, starting to adopting the new API will be quite straightforward. Also, Luma GL v9 is rewritten from the ground up in TypeScript. So it's, which will help tremendously in the upgrade, and especially now that DeckGL is also adopting TypeScript. So it will really catch a lot of the errors would be subtle, right? Small like type structural differences in types and so on, that will all be caught by the TypeScript compiler now. But yeah, I got a little bit overwhelmed. It was a huge effort. It's a massive standard, and I could definitely use some help with this upgrade. I'd love it if someone at Kato could also could help a little bit with this. But I believe that it's coming out in Chrome 102, and I think that's very soon that Chrome 102 was scheduled to be released. And so official web, so that today we can run a web GPU in Chrome Canary by turning on the unsafe web GPU flag. But I think it will be an official release soon. And so if we made a push, we could have something working, you know, in not too distant future. But at this point, I had to go back and do some work on some of my real works. So I could use some help.
I really appreciate the push, Ib. I've been
Sure.
reading the new documentation. I've just looked again and I saw the website. I don't know if you know, it's reverted. I don't know. The V9 stuff's all gone.
Yeah, I was just going to share my screen and show you the new documentation, and so someone has been publishing the old.
Yeah, it was there last week because I was reading it, and I actually wanted to bring this up at this meeting because I saw that V9 we actually had a date on the website, which is like is in a public review period until the end of March. And this was kind of our first community meeting since that date passed. So I wanted to bring that up as a discussion in case you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, like I think generally because we're open source, we should have like, we should have open development and, but with something like the Luma GL refactor, it's so incredibly complicated because, you have the entire WebGL API that you need to understand. And then I had to kind of go in and, and learn the WebGPU API, which is very structurally very different, and then figure out how to create an abstraction that works for both of them. And so there was just no way to write an RFC. It's like, you say you have to kind of cross the river by, feeling the stones as you walk, right? And so, but then I thought like some way I wanted to make this participatory. So I kind of wanted to announce that there was going to be a review period now for the new API. But yeah, then I got a little bit overwhelmed by it. And so I didn't really feel like announcing it because I didn't have the bandwidth to. So it's kind of like in a hidden or a silent review right now. But it'd be nice to publish that on the forum and so on, and let people know that this is happening, and at least give the illusion that this is an open and participatory development.
And the reason why I was also asking, I told Sally when we met some weeks ago, but I'm thinking that will it make sense to try to kind of like do a push all together towards doing something big around NextGL in September, where I'm actually proposing that we organize a workshop in Madrid for developers, try to attract people to join, and do some big announcements. Potentially we can try to align with some of the big names like Google, Amazon, like Azure and so on, to, commit, try to do some sort of like a joint push towards making a lot of things happening during September or something like that. That's what I was asking, because this is a huge thing. And if we then make a new website, we have a logo, we have a lot of stuff to show at the same time.
I mean, new website, entire framework suite, upgraded TypeScript, initial web GPU support, and get a couple of more cool features in there, and it's a big thing.
It's a big deal, and I'm a little bit. I think it would be a pity if we don't use it, strategically and try to do some push together, to solidify that position that I was describing before.
And let's not forget OpenJS and the fact that we're, entering the big league. And
True that.
Is there an event in September?
I'm making it up.
Oh, okay.
I will make you like and I was proposing Madrid because we have our office there, and because people like to come to Madrid. So I was thinking, we can organize like a workshop, and that day, we do some announcement and all these things together. And by the way, it would be great, to have you all, in the same place, and we can go for a beer together or something to do some community building.
Very tempting.
It does sound really fun. Yeah. And one other thing that we won't be able to take advantage of this round, but next year, 2023, as part of OpenJS, they have OpenJs World, and Brian's mentioned that is kind of like a big OpenJS conference or event this year. It's from June 6th to June 10th. So it's just too soon probably to do anything, but it'd be worth at least learning more about how that event functions and how projects integrate themselves into it to make pushes or kind of do announcements, workshops, things like that.
Yeah, I can actually throw in a little bit of information here. It is probably a little too late to add things here for this year, but typically there's the main conference track, keynotes, CFP, that sort of thing. We do also on day 0 can do day 0 training. So if there's a specific thing that you think there's a need for somebody to show up and actually do an extended period to train other people how to use it, then we have space for that. The other thing we do is that the projects, if they need to have a collaboration summit after the event, which is just very specifically, having space for core contributors to get together and meet with each other in person and get really deep down into the details, that's something we definitely encourage as well. So just things to keep for the future, but can definitely help on those things.
Oh, you're muted, sorry.
I propose actually that, like next year and so on. I mean, like this year I proposing this, but like we should try to do a yearly gather together where we do some sort of like 3 days of, like a sprint where we kind of like tackle architecture discussions and so on. And ideally we try to kind of like bring people that are new. So to try to make them more, a couple to the, so yeah, that would be great timing. So definitely will be great. So consider the September thing in Madrid. If you guys kind of like align that, I think, like we spend, like we can figure out, exactly what is the best format, but I think, like we probably want to reserve some time to kind of like collaborate on some architecture things. And then we can do, yeah. I mean, and we will host you. We will, like, we'll take you for nice lunch and drinks and everything in between.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to go to Europe anyway, so maybe I can make it work.
Sounds fun.
Madrid in September is a very nice weather too. And you can go to the beach and everything if you want after. So we can couple it, so that we finish on a Friday and here you are in Spain.
All right.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Maybe I can go to a bullfight.
Well,
And I'm taking some notes for myself. What was the name of the open teams? Was it?
it's called Open Teams. I can share here. How can I share a document, or how do I send you guys a document?
Drop it in chat.
Can I do that?
Like oh, I see a file. I suppose you could reply
put it
all
on-
to the email calendar invite or something.
Or what? True that. Oh well, you guys are all in the DeckGL thing on the Slack channel. I'll share it on the general.
Okay.
So there's nothing private on it. So some info on Open Teams. Okay. And I don't know. I mean, like I met these guys a few months back because they also provide consulting services to development in some areas. So I don't know if you know, but we've been working on something called Geoparket. Yeah, because you've been also working on that, you guys, at Foursquare. So and and these guys were kind of like saying like, yeah, we could provide. We finally did not hire them to do the work, but then they told us that they also do this kind of like work for open source projects. And so we said, well, not for us, but DeckGL really, I think, could use some help. That was the connection, just so you know. And I don't have any relation with them or anything like that.
Yeah, thanks so much for doing that. It's pretty cool. I've been experimenting with like kind of increasing the fidelity of some of the visual elements with Deck and playing around with Blender integrations and things like that. Not actually the program Blender and our frameworks, but more using GLTF as like a way and like the shader and texture nodes and seeing just how far I could get with implementing cool things. Last week I implemented a skybox by just making a giant sphere and texturing it with the sky and scaling it way up. And I was like, wow, this is there's a lot of pretty neat tricks that I'd like to learn how to do and then share for kind of upgrading the visual appeal of people's DeckGL scenes.
Skybox layer is one of the most obvious omissions,
Right.
So easy to add, it's just.
I was looking through our dev docs and I even found back in the day a 3JS layer integration proposal in DeckGL. I wanted to talk to somebody about that since they have a really permissible license and also a great Skybox implementation along with a lot of other
Well,
interesting.
The problem is that it's a very long tail, right? And
Yeah.
then like I've had a lot of people who say like that, oh, that's a nice idea, that would be really cool. But I've never found someone who's really committed to using it to really kind of, it's just like, it's not something I want to build in a vacuum. There needs to be like a real use case and
Yeah,
really
I was thinking not so much about, because the long tail scared me too. I was like, that's a lot of stuff. But I was wondering if there's bits and pieces that I could probably pull over and start to experiment with. One of the most obvious ones to me was like, I saw a bunch of exciting dev docs on, Bloom and other post-processing, and started to learn about like rendering passes. And I think something about if I added like a luminance pass, then I could do Bloom, and we already have a depth pass, and so maybe I could do depth of field, which I see is in Luma, but not in Deck. Some of those.
We get a little bit off topic, but the key to doing good Bloom is to have a really good blur filter. And creating a blur filter is good blur filter is not trivial. And so I think that's like the investment. It would be really good to have, but once you have that, then implementing Bloom is easy.
It's kind of a thread that I'm looking at over the next year that I'm kind of interested in following in the frameworks. There's a lot of really interesting capabilities that we probably could add in to just maybe borrow from other great shaders and community.
There's so much we can do.
Yeah.
It's like we kind of lost that. We've kind of created a really, really good visualization, some amazing layers, and then we've all been very focused on kind of applying those and kind of building products around them, but we kind of lost the momentum on the core. And there's so many incredible things we can do in the core, more animated layers and so on.
Yeah, I've been reading up on WebGL2fundamentals.org and started briefly peeking at WebGPUfundamentals.org, because as that transition comes, I'm like, okay, where since that's so core, it probably would just follow that a lot of the shader work that could be done in WebGL would, there's a jump there to WebGPU that I'm thinking about navigating. But I'm very new at learning even just WebGL, so it's an open question probably to you guys that I just have. It is like, as someone who's interested in making some of those investments over the next year or so, it's just like a transitional period where it's almost like the people that have a lot of experience are probably the best suited to make core contributions during that transition period, but I don't have that yet. So I'm trying to figure out how to prepare myself to make those kinds of contributions.
Well, I'm happy to coach you.
Yeah. Well, no worries.
I have to drop. It's good to see you all.
Yep, if there's no other topics, let's just call it a day and see you guys probably next time when we set up the collaboration space.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.